Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, March 2nd. Skipped yesterday. Gamed with my buddies after work. Quite fun. Finally got them to move on back towards the main quest. At the end of the episode, it was another episode all spent on my diversion. Oh well. But today, I just got off work and it's movie day, and I'm like, wow, I've been thinking, like, what movie do I want to watch? You know, because there's like some, like some James Bond movies. I'm thinking, should I start getting into that, or there's some great comedies that I'm thinking, but I haven't done any from this shelf. Do I want to start a new shelf? I don't know. Decisions, thoughts and ideas. I don't know yet. But I'm actually going to run over to Mom's because I did order the Elgato Cam Link, which will help with improving the quality, hopefully, of videos moving forward. But I'm going to need to play around with it a bit before I try and actually, like, make content, like record a video with it. So I want to go pick that up right away. I'm going to get that and head home and give me a little time to think about the movie. Just a little more time. I've only had a week so far. A little more. So it seems that between when I ordered things yesterday, I ordered 4 things, and they said, yes, they will all arrive together tomorrow. Well, so I got my email, hey, your shipment arrived. I'm like, sweet. Seems between that time and now, those got split, and a couple of them were like, there maybe like the next day or something later, and I'm like, okay. Which means I can't actually test anything, because I ordered tripod, cam link, the cable to connect the camera to the cam link, and the cable to power the camera while it's connected. Without those cables, I can't really try it. Anyways, another thing to complain about here is this is how this was packed. No airbags or nothing, just 2 small boxes shaking around in a large box. You know. Because that's how you keep from damaging things. Anyways. I don't know. I when I see things like that, I'm like, is it cheaper? Like, at the scale that Amazon does it, is it cheaper for them to just insure things to get broken than it is to properly package everything they sell? Because I feel like it's got to be cheaper for them just to have insurance and replace all the stuff that they break than to not break the stuff. Because they clearly don't make the choice to not break the stuff. Anyways. So I got the Cam Link, which looks like, a USB stick, except the back, that's an HDMI input, because it will connect camera to computer. Then I also got this small tripod, which should let me basically prop up the camera in front of the monitor, basically to keep the camera around the same spot that it has been, with the webcam only just putting this in front of there. So, yeah, a couple of the things I'll need. I'm sure I'll get the rest of them later this week. Alright. But beyond that, I was saying, it's movie day, I was thinking. Part of me was definitely thinking, like, it's a great comedy here, but on a new shelf, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do a new shelf yet. Because in part, yeah, I should just do whatever movie I want to watch, who cares? But also, with the collection aspect of the movies move forward as I watch them, oh, the desire is definitely there to stick to a shelf and collect a whole shelf. My brain is weird, I know. I definitely was thinking, like, I could go into James Bond. I mean, that gets like, that's the beginning. 007 is the start. So that's like the beginning of my movie collection. But I was feeling more like a comedy. And so looking at the comedies on the shelves that I've already watched something from, I was like, hey, there's a movie that I saw a clip from on Facebook earlier in the week. And I thought of that and I was like, it's a movie I knew from childhood, but it's one that admittedly I think maybe not everyone knows. The Gods Must Be Crazy. I remember a few things from this. I remember that the video quality isn't great. I remember that it feels like something feels off between the audio that's like the dialogue and the film. Like it feels like the entire movie is poorly done with ADR, which is probably because it was mostly shot out in the African bush and big wide open shots to take advantage of the fact that they're out in the African bushlands. So, you know, there probably weren't mics. There was definitely not a boom up above them. So they probably did all the dialogue and, you know, additional dialogue recording, ADR. And it just sounds like it. I mean, it's older. This is a... yeah, Coca-Cola is a registered trademark of the Coca-Cola Company. What's the year, though? Because that's relevant to this movie. Man, you could say this movie's just really a big ad for Coke. Copyright 1980. It's an older movie. But I also remember grinning ear to ear, because it is hilarious. And I could use that right now, so... let's watch The Gods Must Be Crazy. And that is an interesting movie. To give my rating before getting into discussing it, I don't know if I've ever said it. Obviously, I'd spoil the movies as I talk about them. They're all older movies, but if you're interested in watching them, I'd encourage you to do so. I'd give this a 7 out of 10. And it is an interesting movie. Parts of it feel almost like a strange documentary. It's narrator heavy for large portions. One of the characters speaks an unknown language. But others, it's more of a situational comedy. The description, because it is interesting. For 5,000 years, things have stayed pretty much the same for Z and his fellow Bushmen. Then, one day, an empty Coke bottle drops magically from the sky, and life goes topsy-turvy in the face of this generous gift of the gods. When Z sets off to return the mystical present, he encounters a romantic microbiologist, a schoolteacher, and a band of terrorists, all enmeshed in a plot so insane it could only happen in the civilized world. An international sensation, The Gods Must Be Crazy is one of the most original and thought-provoking comedies ever, starring real-life Bushmen. Nick Zhao. It's a movie that looks at us from the other side and shows us just how crazy we are. First off, the concept of pronouncing that name, I don't know how, because lead actor actually is a Bushman. Is it Zhao? I don't know. Maybe. How do you pronounce an exclamation point in the middle of a word? Because that's, his name has one. But they do speak a very different language. Lots of clicks in it, so maybe that's a symbol for that. I don't know. First off, I have a couple problems with the description here. A romantic microbiologist. Romantic is not the way I would describe him. He's got a bit of an interesting psychological phenomenon. But I would say more of psychologically awkward. He has a desire to be romantic eventually, but really for most of it, he's just awkward, and it takes him a while before he really even starts to want to be romantic. And a school teacher is a little misleading. I guess that is what she is in Africa to do, in the Kalahari to do. She's come out to accept a post as a school teacher, but really she is a reporter who was so fed up with the civilized world that she chose to volunteer and help. One of the things that the movie does that I love the most is really the beginning of the movie. You set the pace and you get the Bushmen, these people in the Kalahari desert, I guess, out in Africa, who have no possessions, live in small family groups. I mean, obviously there's fictitious description there, but I mean it's sort of painting this idealized civilization, this idealized community that has nothing. They have no possessions. And it contrasts it to the civilized world. And I love the line, something like, it's talking about how instead of adapting to our environment, we have forced our environment to adapt to us. Where you have to do, act like you're doing different things at different times of the day. So much so that we have condemned our children to 10 to 15 years of training in order to know how to live within the society we've built. And I'm just like, yep, that's what we did. But the story starts as, well, really, it's multiple stories that keep intersecting. Our key story is going to be the story of Z, who is in a little community, family group, and a plane flies over. And this pilot is a litter bug. So he finishes his bottle of Coke and he tosses the bottle out. This is the hardest thing that they have ever had, because they have wood and bone as their current hardest substance. They don't have proper large rocks where they're at. So this glass bottle is the hardest substance. It's the smoothest substance. It is something they only have one of, and it just starts causing new feelings, anger, jealousy. It starts messing with their group. So Z decides that he is, after a couple attempts to get rid of it simply, he is going to walk to the end of the earth. He doesn't know how far it is or how long it's going to take, but he's going to walk to the end of the earth and throw it off, because the gods will not take it back on their own. And the gods must be crazy to have given them such an evil object. So off he sets. Meanwhile, we have the reporter who's taking a post flying out to Botswana to take on a teaching position because they're desperate. And so she's flying in, and we have microbiologist who is set it off, and we know that he is an intelligent person. Is asked by the Reverend, whose car broke, if he would go pick her up to take her where she needs to go. To which he says, I'm really awkward around women. Probably wouldn't be a best idea. Well, we need someone to do it. And the car that the microbiologist has is messed up. It's a Jeep. It's, it takes a horse for them to start it. So, if it stalls out, it's not going to be coming back on. So he can't turn it off. The brakes don't work. So the Reverend can't just borrow that Jeep. Thus, microbiologist, goes to meet her. And you get all sorts of awkward encounters as he's not able to get, basically, he's all thumbs when he's around her, and he can't quite talk eloquently. So he trips over his words, and he trips over everything he does, and comedy ensues. Meanwhile, there is also a terrorist group that is attacking people in one nation and fleeing through Botswana, where this teacher is now going. So it takes quite a while to get her back to to the school. Things go like that, but ultimately they do get her back. She starts the teaching thing as these terrorists are fleeing through here. Meanwhile, Z, along his journey, is starting to get to points in where he's on the fringes of society. So at one point he sees some weird animals, goats. They look good to eat, so he does his little hunty thing. Anyways, he basically gets arrested, and the microbiologist, along with his friend, mechanic, gets roped into it because the mechanic is the only person they know who can speak the Bushman's language. So he is the one link for translation we have. So that ties them into this criminal case because the Bushman has no concept for you owned that goat. He was all like, hey, I killed a goat. We're going to cook some goat. Oh, hey, people coming up like to arrest him. He's like, I can share. There's plenty here. And they're all selfish, taking the goat, saying he can't. Go hunt another goat. But I don't care with that. Because he has no concept for ownership. But he also doesn't do well being put in jail. And so the microbiologist hires him. The government will allow him, as long as he stays with you, you're saying he knows stuff about nature and you're living out there. If you want to hire him, as long as he stays, in your area, so you're controlling him, then they'll let him serve out his sentence, basically doing work. That way, at least he's outside. So they're now working with the Bushman, who can't continue his journey to take the Coke bottle back. And the terrorists come through, and they kidnap the school teacher and all of the children in order to force the government to clear a path for them to leave this next country. So they're now putting the children under a forced march, and they're clearing through. Now, microbiologist, Bushman, mechanic, they set off into the wild because they're doing some counts. They're doing some science work, whatever. Which puts them at a point when all the police are coming through to clear everyone out, they're missed. They weren't able to be found to be told, leave, or they'll kill the kids. But they're out there and they're counting animals, different species, and they spot these hostages walking through, and utilizing Z's keen hunting skills, they manage to use him to tranquilize the terrorists groups, the 8 people that are marching through these, and with a little hijinks that ensue from a couple being missed, they're able to save the day, and I guess in the end, the microbiologist and the school teacher reporter end up with a little romantic scene as he goes and he tries to explain that really he's not an idiot, he's just really awkward. And apparently she thinks it's cute now, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense for her character, as she's kind of been creeped out by it the entire time until now, but whatever. And Z is able to finish off his time and leave, go find the bottle, find the edge of the earth, a cliff with clouds below, whatever. Foggy morning, and well, that looks like the edge of the earth. Toss it off and return home. a unique story. It is genuinely a unique story. And I think that's a large part of what I like about it. Is like, that's not a story I've heard before. That's different. It is definitely interesting because that lead is a Bushman. He is speaking a language of clicks and I don't know. But you have the narrator who's translating, almost like would do in a documentary on the people. I mean, it very much feels like a documentary on the people at some points. Whenever, yeah, because the narrator is basically his voice. It's explaining what he's saying, which also, that alone causes comedy, as we have this person saying something to which basically nobody understands. And the narrator tells us, the audience, what he's saying. But no one else knows what he's saying. So we, the audience, knows what the Bushman is trying to convey, but they don't get it. To give such an evil object, a Coke bottle, of all horrible objects, to these poor people, gods truly must be crazy. The sync is all off. Very much feels like bad ADR. It's old film stock that wasn't cleaned up great. It feels like a lower quality video. But the story is unique and genuinely entertaining. If you have not seen The Gods Must Be Crazy and you're able to track it down, I would recommend checking it out. It'll leave you smiling. I am now tired, and I'm going to go to bed. So, thank you for joining me. Join me as my journey continues.